Working people aren't losing because of immigrants. They're not losing because someone changed a holiday greeting or because of what's taught in schools. They're losing because the richest people in society have looted the system and convinced you to blame your neighbour instead. While the news focused on flags, bathrooms and buzzwords, the real scam was happening behind the scenes. Wages stagnated, pensions vanished, costs soared, and all the while, the wealthiest smiled. In this chapter, we're going to break down how the far right hijacked economic populism, and most importantly, how to steal it back. The far right didn't invent economic anger, but they sure figured out how to weaponize it. When wages crashed, factories closed, and jobs moved overseas, who did they blame? Not the billionaires, not the corporations, but the workers' neighbors. Immigrants, single mums, activists, and anyone who looked or thought differently. They wrapped it all in a shiny label called anti-elitism. But who did they mean by elites? Was it the CEOs making 400 times the average worker's wage? No. It was teachers, journalists, artists, and students, anyone who dared to ask why the rich kept getting richer. This is one of fascism's oldest tricks, misdirection. When the real enemies are corporations, they hand you a scapegoat instead. And the tactic hasn't changed. It's the same move, dressed up in new clothes. Now here's the hard truth. Progressives didn't just lose this fight because the right played dirty. They lost it because they weren't ready for the fight at all. While working class people were drowning, progressive movements often responded with pie charts, academic studies, and well-meaning policy white papers. But they forgot something essential. People don't vote for a statistic, they vote for a story. The great populist movements of the past, the labor uprisings of the 19th century, the New Deal coalition, even the anti-colonial struggles of the global South, they all understood this. They spoke plainly, emotionally, and morally. Instead, modern progressives often look like they're explaining how to fix a carburetor while the car's on fire. Precise, maybe, but it doesn't put the fire out. And worse, they've abandoned entire regions, rural America, industrial towns, and working-class neighborhoods. Places where progressive movements once thrived have been left to wither under the weight of deregulation and right-wing narratives. When you leave these spaces empty, someone else will fill them, and they have. But here's the good news. This isn't the first time working people have been up against a rigged system and won. When the Great Depression wrecked lives across the United States, it wasn't abstract arguments that turned things around. It was a simple, powerful story. The rich had broken the country, and it was time to make them pay for it. The New Deal wasn't just about programs. It was about making the fight clear. The people versus the profiteers. Across the Atlantic, the Nordic countries built welfare states that thrive to this day, not by promising handouts, but by offering dignity, security, and prosperity to all, framed as a matter of justice and solidarity, not charity. And in Latin America, workers and peasants organized mass movements that toppled dictators and corporate puppets, demanding land, wages, and democracy. Even in the 21st century, movements have surged by telling the story right. Not as a policy lecture, but as a moral cause. The pattern is always the same. When progressive movements tell a story about real people, about what's been stolen, and about how to take it back, they win. When they just hand you a policy manual, they lose. So how do we steal back populism? How do we make sure the next generation isn't fooled by the same old con? First, frame every economic debate as a fight against corruption and greed. Don't talk about tax policy like it's an accountant's meeting. Say it plainly. Why do the richest people on earth pay less tax than teachers and factory workers? Second, tell human stories. No one remembers the budget spreadsheet, but they will remember the story of the retired worker who lost her pension while the CEO bought a third yacht. Third, reclaim patriotism. Freedom isn't about billionaires buying politicians. Freedom is about working people having the power to live without fear, without exploitation, and with dignity. That's not radical. That's what every movement of working people has always fought for. Fourth, crush the lies. Trickle-down economics. It's been debunked for decades, yet it lives because it's repeated. Progressives must learn to repeat the truth just as relentlessly. Tell people what really happened. Wages stagnated, profits skyrocketed, and the middle class was gutted at, not by immigrants, not by students, but by the boardrooms. And finally, go back to the places that were abandoned. Rural towns, industrial cities, union halls, community centers. These were once the heart of progressive organizing. They can be again. Populism isn't dangerous by itself. It's only dangerous when handed to the people who built the problem in the first place. The truth is, populism is just a tool, a hammer. In the wrong hands, it builds walls and cages. In the right hands, it builds unions, schools, housing, and hope. The far right didn't invent anger at the system. They just gave it a villain that was easy to punch down at. Progressives, if they want to win, have to give people the truth. The villain isn't your neighbor. It's the people who profit off of both of you fighting. The challenge now is simple but urgent. Take back the story. Don't argue over pie charts. Tell people who's robbing them and what they can do about it. Reclaim every word. Freedom, dignity, work, and justice. Populism is not the problem. Who wields it is. Fight fascism, fight for each other, organize, how to kill a Nazi. Chapter 9. Populist economic messaging that wins.